A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
The greatest story ever told. Today, we present Unto the Least of These, a drama based on a parable set forth in the 25th chapter of the Gospel according to St. Matthew, a parable from the greatest life ever lived. Although the Master teaches to the people of Galilee, his fame has already spread through all of Samaria and far southward into the province of Judea, even as far south as the town of Beersheba, which is where Judea borders on the great desert. And in the town of Beersheba, there's one man to whom the Master's teaching of a new way of life has come almost as the answer to a prayer. This man is the elderly Zechariah. And since the very first moment he heard about the Master, of his birth and his teaching, Zechariah has pondered this very carefully until now, when he chooses to speak to his son Daniel.
And so, Daniel, I have been thinking about this, and I've come to a conclusion. My son, it is time that I should be leaving here.
Leaving?
But why, Father?
Surely you have been comfortable here. There's always been one of my ambitions in life to provide for you when you have reached this age.
And so you have done, my son, and I'm sure God will remember you for it.
Father, if anyone has said anything to make you feel you are not welcome here...
My leaving is not to be interpreted as a complaint. You see, almost a year ago, I heard about the teachings of one whom his followers call the Master. And not only are his teachings so wonderful, but he works miracles too. In fact, Daniel, I'm led to believe that he is the Messiah.
Father, do you realize what you have just said?
Yes, my son, I realize it. And I tell it to you only so that you will know that for me, there can be no other way. I must go to Galilee. I must see him.
But a man as old as you are, Father...
Use that only as a test of how much I believe. For despite my age, I must go and see him.
But Galilee... a new place, strange people. We have no family there.
My son, let us face the realities. How much time do I have left? A year, 2 years? Let me go to Galilee and find him and spend that time with him. When you are older, you will realize what it means to want inner peace before it is too late.
You have been thinking about this for a long time. Well, Father, if you feel that way, I wouldn't be the son you raised if I stood between you and such an ambition. I shall help you prepare for the journey. And don't forget, Father, you're to travel slowly. With such a fine camel as I've got for you, you can make the journey in leisure, yet without sacrificing too much time.
Daniel, you sound like a father instructing his son on his first journey away from home. Let me remind you, it's the other way around. And I have done my share of traveling, don't forget.
But to go all the way to Galilee...
You needn't worry, Daniel. And now I'd better say my farewells to Deborah, to the grandchildren.
Oh, another one of the neighbors come to say goodbye, no doubt. Who is it?
Sir?
Yes, my boy. And who are you?
Sir, the last one he mentioned, just before... Well, he said for me to come here and tell you, and...
Now, son. No need to cry.
That's right. We can't help you. Now, tell me, what is it? Come now, just as if you were talking to your own grandfather. Well?
my father, Jacob.
Of course, you're Jacob's son. We should have recognized him, Daniel. Now, what about your father?
He died, sir.
Oh, you poor lad. I'm sorry. Very sorry.
He said to come here, to tell you, Daniel, that you'd know what to do about us.
Of course. Well, now, Jonathan, you go into the kitchen. Deborah will fix you some good hot food. It's a long way here from your farm. You must be hungry. And we'll talk about you and your brothers and sisters.
Sir, Father said my uncle would come to take us as soon as he gets word.
Don't worry about a thing, son. Just go into the kitchen.
Yes, sir.
Comparatively young man like Jacob. That's too bad.
And now we've the children to think about.
It wouldn't be so bad if they had a mother.
No. And then there's the land. It's all that's left of the children. Should be protected for them.
Yes, Daniel?
Yes, Father?
You couldn't take the children into your home, could you?
Not all 6 of them. But we could take one, and the others could be placed with families here in the town till their uncle comes for them.
But is it the right thing to do, Daniel?
They must be cared for.
Of course, but they've just lost their father. Now they'll be losing each other at a time when they most need to be close. There should be another... Daniel? The children will not be separated?
But who could take them in? After all, 6 children.
Maybe no one has to take them in.
They can't be left alone.
I know, but I could live with them for the few weeks it would take. I could be their father.
But you're ready to start on your way to Galilee. You wish to find the master.
A few weeks won't matter too much. Besides, the children need someone. Yes, I shall take care of them till I can turn them over to their uncle. After that, I'll set out for Galilee. Well, Jonathan, we've got them all off to bed again.
Yes, sir. Father used to have much more trouble.
We've gotten along pretty well the past few weeks, haven't we?
Oh, yes, sir. And they're not afraid anymore.
You mean they were afraid of me at first?
Oh, no. But we were always expecting they would separate us. Now we know that won't happen.
And by tomorrow, your uncle will come here, and you'll all go to live with him.
And then you can go on to Galilee. You really want to go there very much, don't you, sir?
Yes, Jonathan. Very much. And I'd better start by packing now.
And yet you stayed on here to take care of us. I wish my father knew about that.
Maybe he does.
I remember times when he used to feel that this world wasn't such a very good place, especially after Mother died. But if he knew what you did for us, I'm sure he'd have changed his mind.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. And now would you help me gather up my things?
Of course, sir. We'll miss you.
Once you're settled with your uncle, you'll forget all about me.
Oh, no, sir.
Oh, that might be word from your uncle. Now, answer it. Why, Daniel. Well, you needn't have come so far from town to see me tonight. You know I would have stopped there in the morning to say my farewell.
Father, I don't know how to tell you.
Tell me? Tell me what?
Word has come from the children's uncle.
He's going to be delayed a few days?
Not a few days.
A week? Well, I could wait a week.
Not 1 week. Or even weeks. It will be months.
Months? Months. Well, now.
His message came with a caravan that entered the town this evening. I hurried here to tell you.
Did he give any reason?
He said he'd be risking ruin if he left his business now. After all, you cannot quarrel with a message. He just will not be here.
I see.
Sir, if you stay on here, will it mean that you won't ever get to see the master?
Why, it doesn't have to mean that. A few months. Why, I'll be as strong and healthy then as I am now. I can wait a few months.
No, sir.
Now, what do you mean by that?
Sir, you will forgive me for saying this, but I've been watching you. It's only been a few weeks, but you've changed.
Huh?
I noticed that when you first came here, you could lift little Nathaniel to your lap easily. Now I can see you have to strain when you do it.
Oh, you mean, is it tonight? Well, I'm just a little tired tonight, that's all. Besides, Nathaniel's grown some in these past weeks.
Please, sir, we'll get along. I mean, suppose we do have to live apart. Well, it's only months. If you want to see the Master so much, the way you've told me when we sit up by the fire after the others have been put to bed. If you want it so much, sir, we couldn't stand in your way.
So you want me to go, Jonathan?
Of course not. But it isn't fair for us to keep you back, sir. We're nobody to you.
And what you said before, about the children not being afraid of losing each other anymore. What about that, lad?
I didn't mean anything.
Oh, we've gotten along pretty well here, haven't we?
Yes, sir.
We've kept them fed.
Yes, sir, and clean. Mother always used to say her children were to be clean. We've done that.
And contented.
Oh, yes. It's been like playing a game. A wonderful game where everybody has fun. You've done so much for us. We don't deserve any more.
All right, then. My mind's made up.
You're going?
No. I shall stay here till you don't need me any longer.
But the Master. What about him?
I'll have time. Still time left. And now, Jonathan, you're up long after your bedtime. Don't take advantage of my soft nature. Be off now.
Yes, sir.
Well?
Sir, could I... Would you mind if tonight I kissed you?
Why... Well, go on. Get it over with.
Yes, sir.
That boy. Too sentimental. That's his trouble? Father, tell me, honestly, how much time do you think you have left? No man can answer those questions for himself. I only hope I have enough time. This time, Father, don't let anything deter you. After all, 7 precious months have gone by. As long as the children are settled with their uncle, nothing will stop me now. After all, once I leave Beersheba, I'll be a traveler, alone, and making his way without any hindrance.
And you will send word to us.
Every so often along the route, I shall find someone traveling in this direction. You'll hear from me.
Yes, but we'll never see you again.
You mustn't feel that way, Daniel. Not many men are privileged as I am. To see my son grow to manhood. To see him with a family of his own. And then to be able to go on and realize such a dream as I have. Don't worry about me, son. May God be with you. And if you are with him, you can do no wrong. May he bless you and Deborah, the children, forever. You there, sentry. What town is this?
Why, this is Bethlehem, sir. A fine town, as you know, and always ready to welcome travelers.
You know, sentry, I've been looking forward to this town. He was born here.
A kinsman of yours?
Why, no. The Master.
Oh, him. Yes, he was born here, they say. And now, sir, if it's a fine inn you're looking for, good food, I can recommend the one right down this street. You can see it from here.
Alms for the poor?
You there, woman. No begging allowed here. Get on with you.
Please, sir. This kind traveler might be of a mind to give me a coin.
Get along with you. You beggars give the town a bad reputation. Get along.
Yes, sir. All right. I'll get along.
Poor woman.
Don't feel so sorry for her. She's been told more than once to stay away from the town gate. The elders don't like it. They say it gives Bethlehem a reputation for its beggars instead of for its fine people.
And just what do these fine people of yours do for the beggars?
What do you expect us to do? If you give them money or food, you only encourage them. We keep them moving, that's what. We don't want them around here.
Bethlehem, the place where he was born. And you've so little kindness here?
Look, sir, about that inn. It's right down...
Sentry, never mind about the inn. That poor woman. Look, she's just fainted. quickly.
Yes, sir. My mother. What's wrong with my mother?
Please, help me with her. We must get her to her bed.
What is it, sir? What's happened to
There's
her?
no time for questions now, my dear. We must get your mother to her bed.
Yes, sir. It's here in the corner.
Now, help me.
Yes.
There. Now, Charles, the first thing you do is to make some hot broth for her. She's weak.
Broth, sir?
Don't just stand there. I said start making broth.
But there's nothing to make broth from.
You mean there's no food at all? Well, then, here, take this coin, go into the marketplace, get some food, and hurry.
Sir, that's a silver coin.
Of course. Now, quickly, take it.
But we could never pay you back.
Here, child, for your mother's sake, take this and hurry.
Yes, sir.
Well, my dear, I shall have to be leaving here tomorrow.
Zechariah, you say it as though you're apologizing.
I'd like to stay on and care for you and the child, but I must go. You see, there's so little time left.
You put off your dream for almost a month just to stay here and help us. To see we were fed and cared for.
A month? Has it been that long?
You needn't try to make little of the time. I know how you must be measuring it now at your age.
Well, it can't be more than a few weeks' journey from here by camel. I'll find him. There'll yet be time to learn his way, to achieve the peace I seek.
I hope so. Because no man deserves peace and contentment more than you. You've been so kind. So kind. I wish there was some way I could repay you.
To see the change in you, to see the color come into Sarah's little face, that's been a great deal in repayment to me. Now, I want you to take this little pouch.
More money.
Take it and use it to feed the child and yourself till you're strong enough to find work.
But what of your needs?
Where I'm going, I'll need little. It'll be a comfort to know the money's doing some good here. Take it.
You really want us to have it, Zechariah?
I have enough to take me where I'm going. All I must do now is hurry. Out of the way, man, out of the way. What's the matter with you? Whoa! You there. Don't you know enough to get out of the road when a camel approaches?
Sir, you talk to me.
Yes, I'm talking to you. Here I am. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Yes, sir. Blind.
Then you shouldn't be going about alone. You could have been hurt very badly. Here, young man, let me help you. Stand where you are. I'll dismount. There. Now, tell me, where do you want to go?
They said this was the town of Nazareth, where he lived.
Yes, I've come here myself, seeking him.
And so did I. For he shall give sight to these useless eyes of mine.
I've heard he can do that.
They told me not to start. They said a blind man could not travel such a long distance alone. But I have. I have come this far. And I will go farther. Until I find him.
Where have you come from, young man?
From Bethel.
Bethel? Why, that's back in Judea. You walked all that way?
Yes.
By yourself?
I have. It has taken a long time. Almost a year counting the mistakes. The wrong roads. But I will see him. And he shall cure me.
Of course. Such faith as yours mustn't go unrewarded. I've heard he's by the shore of the Sea of Galilee now, near Magdala, Capernaum.
Yes, that is what I heard, too. Another 2 months or 3, and I shall find him.
2 months? To go that distance?
For the blind, it takes longer, sir.
2 months?
Do not worry. I will find him.
How do you eat, my son?
I beg.
And you walk on naked feet?
They do not bleed often.
Would you like to find the master sooner than 2 months, sooner even than 2 weeks.
You must not joke with me, sir.
Perhaps it can be arranged.
How?
With a camel, you could travel faster, couldn't you?
And would the camel know where to go?
Oh, you're right. This will take more than I thought at first. You must have an animal, and you must travel in the caravan. You must have fodder for the animal and food for yourself.
The only miracle I seek is to see again.
It's no miracle. I know how it can be done, and we will arrange it. Come with me. Not as fine as a camel, but this donkey will take you to the master.
To see him in only 2 weeks.
And don't forget, you're to keep the money belt tight around you. There's enough in it to keep you till you reach him. The driver in the caravan will guide you.
Yes, sir. Why should you do this for me?
You need not concern yourself about that.
But what of you?
I will get along somehow.
I know how you feel about him. I know why you were going to see him. I can tell. It is in your voice and the words you speak. It means a great deal to see him soon, doesn't it?
Yes.
Then why should you give up your place for me? How will you reach him with no animal to take you?
I can walk.
An old man like yourself.
I'm really not so old.
You have the voice of an old man.
You know, even the blind can be wrong sometimes. I'll walk it. I've walked longer distances in my time. No, don't you worry about me. I'll be there. Yes, I'll be there. And in time. Please, someone help me. I must find him before it's too late.
Here, friend. I'll help you.
Thank you. I must be close now. Very close. They said so.
You come seeking the master?
Yes. It's been a long time. Is he here?
He is.
Then I must go to him now. There's not much time left.
He is atop that hill. Let me help you.
No. I'll reach there.
Here, sir. Let me help you. I'll carry you. Now, you rest easy.
Who are you?
Peter is my name.
Peter? Yes, I've heard of you. The strong one. And look, so many people hereabouts. So many. It's just like I imagined. Exactly.
You've come a long way?
From Beersheba.
That is a long way.
And a long time. Tell me, Peter, did a young man come here, a tall man? Abraham was his name. And he was blind. He came to regain his sight.
He was here.
Tell me, did he go away seeing?
Yes.
That's good. It was better that way. Much, much better. The boy has his sight again. It was worth it.
It was.
What do you know of it?
He talked of nothing else but the man named Zachariah.
Me?
He wanted to see you with his own eyes. He waited many days. Then he gave up. You see, he thought you might never arrive here at all.
It was nice of him to have waited as long as he did.
And now, sir, the moment you've come all this way for, here's Zachariah, here's the master.
But Peter, set me down. If I cannot stand before him, at least let me lie at his feet.
Yes, Zachariah. There. And you needn't talk loud for him to hear.
Yes. Master, I'm here. Not when I wanted, nor as I wanted. But I'm here. Seems like such a long time ago that I decided to come. But things intervene. You must forgive me. It was my fault. Perhaps I should have been more steadfast. You see, I plan to spend my last year or two here, seeking your way, and the peace and contentment you promised. Now I have no years left. No time to learn. No time. It could have been so different, Master.
Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.
Master, you speak thus to me, but I have only seen you this moment, heard your voice only once.
I was hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me.
Master, please, surely you must mistake me for another man. I'm Zachariah of Beersheba. You've never seen me before. When did I feed you? When did I come to aid you in your sickness? Surely you mistake me for another.
Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me.
Peter, did you hear? Blessed, and of his kingdom, all that I sought, the peace, the contentment, is mine now.
Yes, Zachariah, for you have known him. Your deeds show that.
Thank God and his goodness. I am not too late. Not too late.
Same network at this time, we will present another episode in the greatest story ever told from the greatest life ever lived.
The natural virtue of veracity, the love of the truth. The truth, hardest to come by, perhaps, is the truth about ourselves. At least, this is what Don Taylor, script editor for a big talent agency, found out that day his boss, Mr. J.P. Rusk, handed him a television script.
I rather like this script by John Denton, Don.
Oh, good, Mr. Rusk. I think it's a fine script and will round out our current series.
Do you know the author?
Well, I've talked to him a few times when he called to ask about his story. We've had it a long time.
Well, get in touch with him. Tell him we'll buy his script at the usual terms for a new writer. You can have him sign the contract when he comes in for a conference. There'll be a few changes we'll ask him to make.
Mm-hmm. I'll call him right away.
Hello. This is John Denton.
This is Don Taylor. Good news, John. Mr. Rusk is buying your script, Faded Glory.
Oh. Well, that's fine, Mr. Taylor. Oh, what terms?
$950, since this will be your first script with us.
That's all right. But is this a definite sale? Because I had a call yesterday from another outfit, and they're very much interested. I told them, frankly, you were holding it, too, and I'd accept the first offer.
Oh, yes, this is a definite sale. I'll draw up the contract, and you can sign it when you come in for a script conference.
Well, good. Then I'll call the other outfit and tell them the script's been sold. And, Mr. Taylor, thanks a lot.
Not at all, Denton. I think you're a fine writer, and I hope you'll sell us many more stories. Come in on Wednesday for a conference, say at 11?
Right. I'll see you then. Goodbye.
Don, this script came in from an old friend of mine, and it's good. I'm going to buy it.
Oh, but with Denton's script, we've got our 13.
Well, I've changed my mind about that story. It'll need considerable rewrite. He's not very well known.
But, Mr. Rusk, I called Denton less than an hour ago and told him we're buying his script.
Well, he hasn't signed a contract yet.
No. I told him, though, if the deal was definite, and he could sign the contract on Wednesday.
Well, you'll have to tell him there's been a change of plans. Tell him we like the script, but the sponsor wouldn't go for it.
Mr. Rusk, he told me another producer was interested in this story, and he called them to withdraw it after my call.
Oh, that's an old gag to get action out of.
Puts me on the spot.
Not at all. You tell him I overruled you. Took a second look at the story, found too many things wrong with it.
Well, if he blows his top, will you talk to him?
Now, you handle it, Don. That's what I'm paying you for.
All right. I'll call him right away and ask him to come in just in case there was someone interested in it.
Handle it any way you want, Don.
Say, what kind of a jip is this? You call me and tell me you definitely want my story. You quote a price to which I agreed. I withdrew the script from another producer. Now, when I come in to sign the contract, you tell me the deal's off. What gives, Mr. Taylor?
I'm sorry, Denton. I liked the script, and so did Mr. Rusk, but, well, the sponsor turned it down.
Why don't you look me in the eye? Look me in the eye when you tell me that.
Oh, we can't help it if the sponsor overrules us on a story.
Are you telling me you didn't get the sponsor's okay before you called me? No, I asked you if the deal was definite, and you told me it was.
It's just one of those things, Denton. It happens every now and then.
Mr. Taylor, you're not telling me the truth, and you know it. Now, I don't know what happened after you called, but I'm not going to take this lying down. I am sending you a bill for $950. And if it's not paid in 10 days, I am taking you into court.
What's this, young man? Who are you taking into court?
Mr. Rusk, this is Mr. Denton. He's the author of Faded Glory.
I'm very sorry about that script, Mr. Denton. I gave it a fast reading. After taking a second look at it, found it wouldn't do.
Well, that's all right, Mr. Rusk. But you should have taken that second look before you called me.
Don, give Mr. Denton back his
script. No. I don't want it. It's yours. Now, when can I expect your check for $950?
You can't expect it. You've no contract with us. I'm certainly not going to pay for a script I can't use. I'm sure with a little fixing up, you can sell the story to some program whose standards are not as high as ours.
Well, I hope your program standards are much higher than your business ethics.
That'll be all, Mr. Denton.
All right. One question, Mr. Rusk, before I go. Would you mind telling me the truth, as one man to another? Just what made you break your assistant's promise to me?
Good day, Mr. Denton. Take your script with you.
All right. If you won't tell the truth now, perhaps you will in court, when you're under oath. Good day.
Mr. Rusk, what'll happen if he sues?
He won't. Costs money to go to court. Oh, here's the script from my friend. Needs a happy ending. Look it over. Give me a memo on it, will you? You better take it home with you. I'd like it by noon tomorrow. Don, come here.
Yes, Mr. Rusk.
Look what came in the mail.
Summons to appear.
But that young fool's suing us.
Will I have to testify?
Well, of course you will, if he goes through with it. You'll be the chief witness for us.
Mr. Rusk, I did tell him it was a definite agreement.
Well, you're not going to say that in court. Now, get my lawyer on the phone. He'll go over the case and tell you just what to say.
But isn't an oral agreement binding?
He didn't make it with me. I'm the one who has the final say.
Mr. Rusk, I think that we're in the wrong. Denton's script is a much better story than your friend's.
Don, you're a bright boy. I think you'll go far in this business if you'll forget a few things they taught you in Sunday school. Now, if Denton had signed a contract with us, then we'd have had to pay him. He didn't, and that's that. Now, Kaiser's a smart lawyer. He'll know what to do. Now, just do as he says, and everything will be all right.
Well, it's all right, but I'll be cross-examined, and I could be asked some awkward questions.
Well, as I say, you're a bright boy. You'll come up with the right answers. Now, get Kaiser on the phone.
Yes, Mr. Rusk.
So, Don, your boss and his lawyer want you to go into court and testify to an untruth.
Yes, Father Terrell. That's what it boils down to.
I see. You've talked it over with your wife?
Oh, yes. We had a terrible argument. That's why I came to you.
Well, tell me, how much does this job mean to you, Don?
A lot, Father. I got a good raise last month, and we moved into a bigger apartment. And, well, we bought a lot of things on time. I'd be in a tough spot if I lost my job just now.
Mm-hmm. You think Rusk would fire you if you told the truth?
Well, that was the implication.
Well, there's only one thing I can say to you, Don, and I guess you know what that is.
Yes, I guess I do. Tell the truth.
What else can I say? This morning, the subject of my sermon was truth, and how hard it is sometimes to live by it. It's so easy to tell the truth when there's nothing at stake. That's not the kind of truth that tests a man.
I know what you mean. Betty says that I'd be a fool not to do as our lawyer advises. She argues that this will be a good lesson for Denton to learn early in the game and next time to get things in writing.
But you feel in your heart that Mr. Rusk is wrong.
Yes. In my judgment, Denton's script is better. Mr. Rusk is taking an inferior script to return a favor to a friend.
Well, Don, look at it this way. Mr. Rusk can lie if he wishes, but he has no right to ask you to lie for him.
But, Father, I just can't afford to lose my job. Denton means nothing to me, but my wife does. Well, he's got a good script. Someone will buy it eventually. He may even get a better price for it by waiting.
Go on in that vein long enough, Don, and you'll convince yourself you've done this man a big favor by going back on your word.
It's easy for you to say, Father. You're not confronted with the consequences.
Yes, I know. But I'm looking ahead, Don, and I'm thinking of whether you won't feel you've sold yourself out by testifying to a lie.
Oh, I don't know what to do. I don't like to lie. No one does, really, but there's Betty to consider, my job, my future.
And what about you?
I'm wondering if I have the integrity I thought I had, or that I'd like to have.
Well, this is the test. There comes a time when every man must ask himself not only who he is, but what he is. When he must know the stark truth about himself. When he must decide between what is expedient and what is right.
I know what's right in this case. And I also know what's expedient.
Good. Which course is it to be, Don?
Oh, I just don't know right now, but I'm going to have another talk with Mr. Rusk.
Don, we're running a business. Now, you've got to learn to be tough, look out for your own interests. Otherwise, you go under. This is a tough racket. The sooner you realize it, the better. And the sooner Denton realizes it, the better for him.
Well, couldn't we offer a settlement out of court and avoid a suit?
Oh, what do you think? I'm crazy? I'm not going to let some young writer shove me around. He won't stand a chance. He hasn't any money. He's going to act as his own lawyer. Kaiser will make a monkey out of him. We'll make him wish he'd never started anything with us.
But suppose he asks me about that telephone conversation.
You say he misunderstood. You tell the court we were interested in his script. We had several others under consideration. We naturally picked the best.
What about the contract I told him we'd draw it for him to sign?
You'll say it was conditional, that if his script was selected, we'd have him sign a contract. That's the thing to remember. We didn't offer to buy his script, only that it was under consideration. Oh, we admit it was a fairly good script, and we might have bought it if the other hadn't turned up.
Oh, I don't like it, Mr. Rusk.
No? You like your job here, don't you?
Of course I do.
You have a pretty little wife who likes the new apartment you just rented?
Sure, but...
Now, if you want it on the line, here it is. You do as Kaiser tells you or get a new job. Now, which is it going to be? Make up your mind and fast. We go to court on Monday.
Well, I'd like to think it over.
Sure, Don. Think it over. I'll give you just 30 seconds. While you're mulling it over, I'll write out a check for 2 weeks' salary.
No, don't do that.
You testify?
Yes.
As Kaiser advises?
Yes.
Good. Well, I'm sorry to put the pressure on, Don. I had to know just what sort of a guy I had for my assistant. Now, get on over to Kaiser and get a briefing.
Why, Mr. Taylor.
May I come in?
Oh, sure. Why not? Sit down. Can I get you a drink?
Oh, no, thanks. Denton, I had a talk with our lawyer this afternoon.
So?
Well, look, he's one of the smartest in the business. You don't stand a chance.
Oh, that's very discouraging, but why do you tell it to me?
Well, I want to save you a lot of trouble and money. I take it that you don't have too much.
Very little money, but lots of trouble. Matter of fact, I won't be able to hire an attorney. I'll have to plead my own case.
As I told you, I think that you're a very good writer. For this suit, even if by some quirk you win it, it'll hurt you.
How do you figure that?
Producers don't like to be sued. It'll give you a black eye in the trade. When a script comes in with your name, they'll remember you as the one who sued Rusk.
So what am I supposed to do? Let you and Rusk pull a fast one and forget all about it?
You're interested in $950, aren't you?
No, not entirely.
Well, that's a good script. It'll sell. I'll do everything I can to help you sell it.
Why are you so interested in me?
I don't want the suit to take place.
Why, when you're so sure you'll win?
Well, I'm afraid the misunderstanding was mostly my fault, and, well, I don't want to testify against you.
There was no misunderstanding. I asked if the sale was definite, and you said it was. Oh, I get it. When you get on the stand, you'll deny everything.
Listen, I have to. It means my job.
Bad as that?
Yes.
So, it's me or you?
I suppose it is.
Well, that makes an interesting situation. There's more at stake than $950.
What do you mean?
Whether I was wrong about you. You know, of course, I haven't a chance if you deny that telephone conversation.
That's right.
I was rather banking on you to come through and tell the truth.
Believe me, I'd like to, Denton. I thought that Rusk was different. He wouldn't pull a stunt like he did on you.
Are you sure it was Rusk you thought was different, or yourself, Taylor?
Maybe a little of both.
You read Fated Glory, didn't you?
Of course.
About this fellow who started out like a Cyrano de Bergerac, was always going to hold his banner high, There was to be glory in a good fight against the old enemy, hypocrisy. But he gave in a little here, a little there. And the glory faded.
Lay off. I know the script. Don't rub it in. I don't like what I have to do.
That's what I'm banking on.
Well, don't bank on me.
Rusk is banking on you to lie for him, isn't he?
Yes, I suppose he is.
You know he is. If you lie, I don't have a case. If you tell the truth, he doesn't have a case.
Look, I don't owe anything to you. You're just another writer.
And Rust's your bread and butter.
Yes.
Haven't you heard a man can't live by bread alone?
Look, call off your suit.
No.
Why not when you haven't got a chance?
I have one chance, and I'm going to take
What
it.
chance?
That when the chips are down, you will tell the truth.
Thank you. Thank you for the compliment, but don't depend on it.
My name is Joel P. Rusk, owner of the Rusk TV Company. I produce programs for radio and television. A script named Faded Glory was submitted by Mr. Denton, an unknown writer. By that I mean he had only a few credits. I read the script, rather liked it. Told my assistant, Donald Taylor, that we were interested in the story as a possibility for one of our packages.
Mr. Rusk, did you at any time tell Mr. Denton you were definitely going to buy the script?
I did not.
Only that it was a possible sale.
As a matter of fact, I had no dealing with Mr. Denton at all. I talked to him only once.
When was that?
When he came to the office and demanded that I pay him $950 within 10 days or he would sue me.
Well, did he give any explanation as to why he was going to take this action?
Oh, he evidently was under the impression that we'd promised definitely to buy his script.
But no such promise was ever made by you.
Definitely not.
What position does Mr. Donald Taylor hold in your firm?
He is script editor and my chief assistant.
Does he have authority to buy anything without your approval?
Oh, no. He reads all scripts as they come in, rejects those that don't fit the program, passes on to me those he thinks are suitable. Then we get together and from this group select the stories we buy.
But even from this group, a number will be rejected.
Oh, yes. If we're to do 13 scripts, Don will send in at least 20. This gives us a margin of 7.
So the fact that a script got by the first reading by Mr. Taylor doesn't mean a great deal.
No, only that it has one chance in 20 of being bought.
Thank you. That will be all. Your witness, Mr. Denton.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Rusk. How long has your assistant, Donald Taylor, been with you?
3 years.
Uh-huh. You have a high regard for his editorial ability.
I do.
So if he passes on a script to you with a recommendation, you'd be inclined to think that that script had some quality?
Yes, I would.
And my script, Faded Glory, was passed on with a recommendation.
That's right. However, as I testified, 7 scripts had to be rejected. After careful consideration, yours was one of them.
And Mr. Taylor can buy nothing without your final approval?
Right.
Mr. Rusk, are you aware that on Wednesday, January 18th, at 11 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Taylor called me by telephone and told me you definitely wanted to buy my script, and the price was $950.
Well, it's quite possible my assistant did call you, but if he did, I'm sure you must have misunderstood.
I didn't ask you whether it was a possibility he called. I asked you if you were aware that he did call. Now, can you answer that? Yes or no?
No, I am not aware that he did call.
Still, you've admitted it was possible.
Yes.
Now, when your firm calls a writer, what is usually the purpose?
Oh, we call him to tell him to come in for a script conference, or that we wanted a certain scene rewritten, or any number of reasons.
Would one of those reasons be that you wanted to buy a script?
Oh, yes, that would be another reason.
But in the normal course of business, you wouldn't pick up the telephone just to tell a writer you were interested in his script.
Oh, that's entirely possible.
Oh, come on, Mr. Rusk. There wouldn't be much point in that, would there?
I object to this line of questioning. Mr. Rusk has testified he's not aware there was a phone call. That point can be better testified to by Mr. Taylor when he takes the stand.
Very well. No more questions. Donald Taylor. I'm script editor for the Rusk TV company.
On Wednesday, January 18th, did you call Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Will you tell us what was the nature of that call?
Denton had called a number of times about his script, and, well, I called him to tell him that I had read it and passed it on to Mr. Rusk, and there was a possibility that we might use it.
Only a possibility, not an ironclad promise to buy. You did not send him a contract?
No.
And it's customary, isn't it, to send a contract when a definite sale is to be made?
Yes.
So the finalization of an agreement to buy a script is the signed contract?
Yes.
One final question. In your telephone conversation with Mr. Denton, can you recall anything you said which might be interpreted to mean there was a definite sale?
Oh, no,
May I ask the witness to repeat his answer? I did not hear it.
No, that's all. Your witness, Mr. Denton.
Mr. Taylor, when you took the stand, you put your hand on the Bible and you took an oath. Did you not? Yes. Now, could you repeat that oath?
It went, I do solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
There's a bit more, isn't there?
So help me God.
Then you're aware you called on the almighty power of God to help you give true testimony in this case?
Well, yes.
Then I have only one question to put to you. In your direct testimony, did you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Take your time, Mr. Taylor.
I object. This young man knows nothing about law. It's an insult to imply the witness didn't tell the truth in his direct testimony. It's a reflection on my integrity. It's incompetent, immaterial.
Overruled. Did you, or did you not, tell the truth in your direct testimony?
I did not.
I object. I ask the court to permit no further questions.
I wish to testify. Now, is it the truth that you called me and told me Mr. Rusk was buying my script, that it was a definite sale, and I could sign the contract when I came in for a script conference?
Yes.
Will you tell the court why this verbal agreement was broken?
A script came in from a friend of Mr. Rusk's, and he decided that he would do it instead.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Your witness, Mr. Kite.
No question.
I ask the court to give a directed verdict in my favor, plus court costs.
Granted. Court adjourned.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with the National Council of Catholic Men, presents the Catholic Hour. A group of the Paulist choristers open the Catholic Hour singing Gounod's Sancta Maria. Reverend Robert J. Slavin of the Order of Preachers of the Catholic University of America will now deliver the second in his series of 6 addresses on the general subject, Christian Heroism. His discourse today is entitled, Christian Courage. I present Father Slavin.
Friends of the Catholic Hour, Christ came to teach uncommon common sense. When he fed hungry bodies with food, filled empty hearts with joy, or healed broken limbs with the unction of his hand, the crowd swarmed about him. Teaching starved minds was another matter. Look at the scene the day after he fed 5,000 famished stomachs. The men and women pressed about him, eager to catch every detail of what might take place. Christ rose to speak. Immediately he caught their fancy by mentioning the bread with which he had fed them the day before. Now he would instruct them. I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall not hunger, and he that believeth in me shall live forever. The crowd grew restless. The Pharisees skirting the edge of the group muttered in their beards. One by one the people walked away. Christ read the minds of those whom fear froze in their tracks. Does this scandalize you? It is the Spirit that quickeneth, and the words I have always spoken to you are spirit and life. Many of his disciples, now frightened by the challenge, turned away and walked no more with him. To the few who bore the taunts of the others he said, will you also go away? Overcoming their fear and challenging the cowardice of their companions, they cried out, Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the words of eternal life. Today, the hard things of Christ meet the same cowardice in the hearts of people. Fearful of the challenge of his doctrine, they hug closer to themselves the luxury, ease, and pleasures upon which they have staked their all. Some of them adopt the tactics of the bully and shout in defiance that the leader of Christianity was a weak, milk and honey type of person. Throwing up a smokescreen to cover their own hypocrisy, they picture Christ as the meek Lamb of God, the man who spoke sweet parables and gave out airy platitudes on the poor in spirit, on those who are meek and humble of heart. The effeminate young man often found on holy picture cards with sunny locks and soft white hands. Christ, soft and weak. There was nothing soft nor weak about Christ. Christ was a real man. He was the lamb led quietly to slaughter, but he was also the Lion of Judah, of whom it is said, it is awful to fall into the hands of the living God. When right and wrong were at issue, no ill-timed fear weakened his courage. It was his bravery which spurred him on to cut through the hypocrisy of the evil men of his day. Well did Jesus know them. Under the porch of Solomon, facing the sepulchres on the Mount of Olives, he had told them, you see those tombs, you are like them. Without, they are white, but within they are full of dead men's bones and corruption. You do well to decorate and venerate them, for you are like them. Christ hated evil with a hatred born out of his love for good, with a hatred that could make him be as fierce as the eagle and furious as the lion, while remaining the mild Lamb of God. Mildness does not consist in refusing to hate anything, in straddling fences, in taking the side of wrong for sake of peace. That is indifference and cowardice. Nowadays, this trait is robbed of its weakness by the high-sounding names of pacifist and appeaser. Behind such deceptive words, there lurks the question Cain asked of God, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Christ answered that question. How could he look upon men who enslaved others by their laws, so that the freedom of sons of God was denied them? How could he deal with the hypocrites who hid under the flag of the Roman Empire and were traitors to their native country? He did but one thing. He unmasked them, and when the time came, he set his foot on this nest of vipers, even at the risk of meeting death. It was the righteousness of his cause that made him condemn those who were obstacles in his path. His courage derived its heat from the burning coals of the flaming furnace of love in his heart. It was the cry of that love, strong as death, and of that zeal, hard as hell, spoken of by Solomon. Love of justice and truth made that furnace within him boil, but Christ was in perfect possession of himself always. Rash boldness, the unleashing of his fury without the guidance of reason, the unrestrained use of his strength merely for show, these were foreign to the teacher of mankind. He had a job to do, his Father's business, and he would do it until his breath was stifled by his own blood. To carry out his work, he had to be free. Free to teach his disciples the doctrine of love. Free to heal wounded hearts with the ointment of his words. Free to mend broken bodies by the touch of his hand. Above all, he must be free to enter into his Father's house to pray. Never could he stoop to that false freedom which consists in judging without the right to judge, in condemning without authority, in speaking rashly merely to stir the passions of the people. Never could he abuse freedom in the name of broad-mindedness. His conduct was prudent, and well did he show to all that he was master of his actions, his work, and himself. Fear never made him a slave to things beneath him. He prized too highly the human nature which was his to allow the nightmare of terror or panic to overthrow reason and destroy the confidence he had in himself. One incident shows this clearly. Christ was in Galilee, which was then under the rule of the puppet king set up by Rome. While he was preaching, the Pharisees, pretending to be anxious about his personal safety, came to him and said, "Depart and get thee hence, for Herod has a mind to kill thee." Oh, what haughty and courageous words he hurled at them. "Go and tell that fox, behold, I cast out devils and do cures. Nevertheless, I must walk today and tomorrow and the day following." Is Christ not giving us an example of bravery in attacking him who would shackle his freedom? Go tell that fox, He does not hedge, nor squirm, nor compromise. This crowned impostor, coward and murderer, this tyrant grinding under his heels free children of God, this quisling of another century, scheming to play the Jews against the Romans, is openly challenged by Christ. What a glorious pattern Christ sets for those today who in weakness and tepidity of soul think they can serve God by being cowards. What a thrilling example to those who are now fighting for freedom, as though truth can set men free when it is hidden under a bushel, as though one could show love for one's brother by abandoning him to the treachery and enslavery of his enemies. Indeed, we are our brother's keeper. The valiant man is brave not only in attack, but what is more courageous, under attack. It is harder to stand fast than to act, more difficult to sustain the fears that spring from dangers, especially the danger of death, than to accomplish things. In action, there is the excitement and stimulation of the emotions. In accepting dangers and trials, there is a constant conflict with feeling. The mind is weighed down, not excited, and is depressed by enforced inactivity. The crowd does not applaud, but often condemns what appears to be cowardice. Christ, our leader, does not expect his soldiers to undergo any danger he himself has not experienced, to be courageous in any matter in which he has not been the model, to bear with the sadness that comes from opposition, desertion of friends, loss of health, to feel sharply internal agony, discouragement, and loneliness that strive to weaken the will, and at the same time to keep the will firmly set against them, firmly attached to what we know to be our duty. This is the perfection of courage. To bear with mental and physical suffering in the face of death, why, this is the task of that virtue which only the brave may claim. When we look to the dark, cloud-swept heights of Calvary and place ourselves in spirit among the mocking, taunting, blasphemous rabble, and gaze through the gloom at Jesus stretched in agony upon the wooden altar of the cross, our hearts are stunned at the greatness of his courage. When we watch the sacred blood pouring forth from 1,000 gaping wounds, from the gashes made by the scourges, and from the lacerations on his sacred brow pierced by thorns, when we feel our souls shrink within us as we see the drops of blood gather and then fall on the rock of Calvary, when we shamefully look up into that tearful, disfigured face, we catch the full meaning of the words, "The courageous man is better than he that taketh cities." At no other period in our national life have our people felt the need of something that will bolster their strength against those who are attacking the freedom of man. This fundamental threat to the freedom which men must have in order to be human has staggered us. Nations have become marionettes, obeying the slightest wish of the Axis powers. Countries have been cruelly sacked by the violence and rapine not only of the Hiorito and Hitler hordes, but also of the double crosses within those countries. men made free by God have been reduced to slavery, and even that freedom of spirit which no man nor devil can take from them has been surrendered to fear. Then there is the threat presented to the humanity of man by sin. When fear plunges men and women into the dull round of the passions, they throw away the last vestige of humanity, for sin chains a man to things beneath him. Held by the bonds of sin, such a man is afraid to enter the house of his own soul, afraid to know the heights to which he can climb. Instead of stretching for the stars, he is condemned to the awful terror of struggling in the quicksand. The virtue which beats off all such threats is courage. The coward either lives in constant fear or supinely shakes off his humanity by waving the white flag of submission. Throughout human history, it is the man of courage who has won the accolade prized by all. There stands a man. Courage strengthens the will to withstand and attack difficulties and dangers for a good end. A man may act with great boldness, overcoming all kinds of opposition, but if it is not for a good end, he is not exercising the virtue of courage. A tyrant may whip his army into a mad frenzy. His soldiers may display physical stamina in their fight against freedom. But what shred of human virtue, what trace of manly courage can be found in the frenzy of such a leader or the brutal response of such an army? Courage that is human, real courage, directs its spurs not at an empty triumph. Courage aims at a good. A soldier, warring in defense of his country, is fighting the good fight, and his days are shot through with the natural virtue of courage. If behind his patriotism there is the love of God and the desire to serve him, if he acts with courage because he knows the defense of his country is demanded by religion, then his courage is supernatural. The quickly aroused passions of men easily respond to fear and daring. Fear can paralyze a man, while daring makes him rash. But courage releases the fear and curbs the rashness. Courage is concerned, first of all, with the threat to life in a public or private war. At the same time, lesser threats are seen to be insignificant when compared to the imminent threat of death. When we reflect that the harder work of courage is to enable us to bear with difficulties and hardships rather than to give us strength to attack, is it hard to see which act of courage we need today? A glorious offensive carries itself along in its own momentum, but if begun without sufficient men, or tanks, or planes, if begun without reliance on God, what will its rashness bring about but a bitter defeat? Was the attack of the Japs, who far outnumbered our forces on Bataan Peninsula, more worthy of our admiration than the stolid courage of our American fighting men? When prudence dictates the time of our offensive, the courage needed will not be wanting. But until that time, We must withstand all fears. Fears of privation and want. Fears of food shortage, of air raids, of propaganda sown by the enemy. Fears of death. Fears that may send men and women in distraction to taste of sin. The path ahead will be rough, the ground hilly, and the boulders that lie in the way may have every appearance of being too huge for our weak frame to push aside. At another day, and in another country, holy women asked the same question: who shall roll us back the stone? When they came upon the scene, the stone was already pushed aside. Are we to be shrunken by fear of the obstacles that lie ahead? Are we to listen to the challenging rebuke of Christ? Will you also go away? With the conviction that strength is perfected in weakness, we know to whom we shall go. Prayer is the powerful instrument which will gird our loins with courage, push back the stones in our path, and the encouragement of Christ will bring new strength to our souls. He and He alone will lead us out of the night of depression and fear to victory. Victory over ourselves, victory over our enemies. Among the visions which St. John was given to see, one was that of Christ as the commander and leader of Christian armies. I saw a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and there was a crown given him, and he went forth conquering. He that sat upon the white horse was called Faith and Courageous, and he was clothed with a garment sprinkled with blood, and the armies followed him likewise clothed. Those that fight with Christ ride on white horses, for their cause is right. Their enemies wage war on God, but the soldiers of God fight the good fight against the world, the flesh, and the devil. When we purge ourselves of sin, and with young hearts accept the challenge of the future, the seal of the courage of Christ will enable us to do all things, to dare all things, to suffer all things. O Lion of the tribe of Judah, who fightest the good fight, and has called on all men to join thee, give thy courage and thy strength to all thy soldiers. Give grace to every one in his own place to fight thy battle. Give the grace of wisdom to those in high station, that they may neither yield to fear nor be seduced by daring. Make them prudent as serpents and simple as doves. Teach us, one and all, to live in thy presence, and to see thee as our leader, and thy cross as the foundation for the new battle cry which your victory made possible. Peace be to you. O Lord Jesus Christ, who in thy mercy heareth the prayers of sinners, pour forth, we beseech thee, all grace and blessing upon our country and its citizens. We pray in particular for the President, for our Congress, for all our soldiers, for all who defend us in ships, whether on the seas or in the skies, for all who are suffering the hardships of war. We pray for all who are in peril or in danger. Bring us all, after the troubles of this life, into the haven of peace, and reunite us all together forever, O dear Lord, in thy glorious heavenly kingdom.
The address you have just heard was entitled Christian Courage and was delivered by Father Robert Slavin of the Order of Preachers of the Catholic University of America. This was the second in Father Slavin's series of 6 addresses on Christian heroism. A copy of today's talk may be obtained by writing to the National Council of Catholic Men, Washington, D.C., or to the station to which you are now listening. The Catholic Hour continues with Ave Maria, Thou Virgin and Mother by Tozer. Next Sunday at this time, Father Slavin will deliver another address in this series entitled Courage of Heroes. Your announcer is John Patrick Costello. The Catholic Hour has been presented by NBC in cooperation with the National Council of Catholic Men as a public service and came to you from New York. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Christian Heritage Ministry, in cooperation with Fuller Seminary, proudly presents the Old-Fashioned Revival Hour, a broadcast of the Gospel with Dr. Charles E. Fuller. As the broadcast is just about to get underway, let's join the Old-Fashioned Revival Hour, and while we do that, put a marker in your Bible in the book of Haggai, chapter 1.
Pilgrims for Jesus in the lowland of sin, hoping that we at last the light crown may win, serving the Master through the morning are we. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Heavenly beauty makes the shadows to flee. Glory is waiting when the Spirit is free. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Strangers are happy in His vineyard today, trying to help our Lord and Savior away. Serving the Master through the noontime are we. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Heavenly beauty makes the shadows to flee. Glory is waiting when the Spirit is free. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Weary and footsore, the battle is won. Trusting the promise that will hear His well done. Serving the Master all the evening are we. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Heavenly beauty makes the shadows to flee. Glory is waiting when the spirit is free. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Sunset is coming, but the sunrise will see. Every day with Jesus, every day with Jesus, I love Him more and more. Jesus saves and keeps me, and He's the one I'm waiting for. Every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before. Every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before. Every day with Jesus, I love Him more and more. Jesus saves and keeps me, and He's the one I'm waiting for. Every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before.
All right, please, let's stand and sing Heavenly Sunshine. Do you good. Folks out in the radio audience across the nations are waiting to hear you sing from the Long Beach Municipal Auditorium. As you sing through the first time, turn around, shake hands with every one of you. Possibly can. All together on Heavenly Sunshine. Now lift it up. Heavenly you missed a handshake on that, you come up and shake hands with me at the close especially. I'll give you a double handshake. That's fine, but sing it once more and really lift it up all together. Sing it
On Jordan's stormy banks I stand and cast a wistful eye to Canaan's fair and happy land, where my possessions lie. We will rest in the fair and happy land by and by, far across on the evergreen shore. Sing the songs of Moses and the Lamb by and by, and dwell with Jesus evermore. O'er all those wide extended plains shines one eternal day. There God the sun forever reigns and scatters night away. We will rest in the fair and happy land by and by, far across on the evergreen shore. Sing the songs of Moses and the Lamb by and by, and dwell with Jesus evermore. When shall I reach that happy place and be forever blessed? When shall I see my Father's face and in His bosom rest? We will rest in the fair and happy land by and by, far across on the evergreen shore. Sing the songs of Moses and the Lamb by and by, and dwell with Jesus evermore.
I just wonder if there are any here that have ever heard that oldest melodies on Jordan's stormy bank. That was new to me, and yet I understand it goes way, way, way back. Well, this is the old-fashioned revival hour anyway. We sing some of the songs, and just in a few moments the chorus choir is going to sing one of my favorites, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. And I tell you, it means everything in these dark and distressing days to have a friend in Jesus. To you outside of Christ, you're without hope, without Christ, without God. May you come today and kneel by faith to the foot of the cross and know this friend of all friends. All right, we're all having a good time, aren't we? Amen. I don't know. We don't know just hardly how this program goes across, but somehow we get it across in the 60 minutes, right, as they say in the radio parlance, on the nose. Well, anyway, go ahead and sing What a Friend We Have in Jesus.
What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in trials and temptations, is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Find a friend so faithful, who will all our sorrows share. Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it through the Lord in prayer.
I feel led to ask you to stand right now and sing one verse of Sweet Hour of Prayer, 131. Would you do that, please? Remain standing for prayer. Let's sing this in the Spirit and then remain silent before Him for a few seconds before I have our son lead us to the throne of grace at the close of the first verse. every head bowed, join with us in the radio audience. Stand, if it's possible, by your radio. And join this congregation here in Long Beach. Ask God to forgive you of your sin. Let's remain silently in prayer for a few seconds.
O our Father, we do thank Thee for the wonderful privilege that we have of coming to Thee through the Lord Jesus Christ. And how thankful we are that Thou art the God that dost hear prayer, and that Thou art the God that dost answer prayer according to the good purposes of Thy will. Father, today we would come to Thee confessing our sins and thanking Thee for the forgiveness of sins, so that we can have access to Thee by faith in the shed blood of Jesus Christ. We pray today for the missionaries in the foreign fields who are carrying the gospel to a world which is so often indifferent and sometimes hostile. And Father, if perchance they may hear the broadcast today through the foreign shortwave stations in Luxembourg, in Quito, Ecuador, or in Formosa, we pray that they may be strengthened thereby. And, oh Father, help us here who remain at home to remember that we are always to be witnesses to Jesus Christ. And Father, if our vision of a lost world has been dampened, O Lord, we pray that Thou wilt revive it today as we catch afresh a glimpse of Jesus Christ. For we ask it in His name and for His sake. Amen.
Work, for the night is coming. Work through the morning hours. Work while the dew is sparkling. Work mid springing flowers. Work when the day grows brighter. Work in the glowing sun. Work, for the night is coming. When man's work is done. Work, for the night is coming. Work through the sunny moon. Fill bright the stars with labor. Rest comes sure and soon. Give every flying minute something to keep in store. Work, for the night is coming. When man works no more. Work, for the night is coming under the sunset skies. While their bright tints are glowing, work, for daylight flies. Work till the last beam fadeth, fadeth to shine no more. Work while the night is darkening, when man's work is o'er.
Friends of the radio audience, I do not know of a time in the many years of my radio ministry that there's been such a need for a program like the old-fashioned revival hour. I'm sure that your hearts are made to rejoice as the letters are read each Sunday, telling how the Holy Spirit is working in the hearts as the Word of God goes out to needy souls from week to week. There's some that we cannot read over the air. It just seems that some by accident tune in on the hour and are saved and receive hope and courage, but are of such personal nature that we do not feel that we should read them over the air. And God has entrusted us with a tremendous responsibility by giving to us these open doors round the world. But He's looking to each one of us to do our part to see that this gospel ministry continues to go out over the many, many stations. Can we depend upon you to do your part? Thank you, I know we can. And I know you'll not fail the Lord in this vital portion of His work. wonder if you know that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Honey, just before you read the letters, doesn't that song take you back to some early days when you and I used to sing that as a duet? We'll not attempt it now.
We won't.
But it just took me back to some times when we used to try to sing it. Wasn't it sweet when you and I sang it there?
Well,
all right, go ahead and read the letter.
Sounded all right to us. We had lots of enjoyment singing it. I certainly wouldn't try it now. Dear Reverend Fuller, I am an alcoholic who has had his ups and downs on the sin road for years. But I know that my Redeemer lives, because he lifts me every day and would lead me straight to the throne if I did not stumble sometimes. But even in my weakness, I know he watches over me and loves me. Although I've been a sinner of the first water, I have come to have a wonderful understanding of God's love for even me and forgiveness, as I have listened year after year to your preaching. A long time ago, when I really asked him for help, yes, any help that would be good for me in my desperation, he opened the way for me to hear the old-fashioned revival hour. And Sunday after Sunday it lifts me and my family and makes life here on earth wonderful, and that promise of the life beyond something to look forward to. From London, dear sir, I am writing to let you know how much we enjoy your service on Radio Luxembourg. They are a great inspiration to Mother and myself. Mother has suffered much as a result of the raids during the war, but through it all she's a wonderful Christian, and we would like to have more services on the air such as yours. But it seems to me sometimes that the majority of people would just like to leave Christianity out of their lives altogether. And you may be interested to hear just a word from a good letter in which the lady mentions one of our graduates of the seminary, who graduated last May. We thought you might be interested to know that at our prayer service last night, we had the pleasure of hearing B.G., one of the graduates of the first class of the Fuller Seminary. He spoke about the Japanese people and how the Lord had laid it on his heart to go as a missionary soon after the first of the year. The Lord's blessing is obviously on this young man, and if the seminary continues to turn out such graduates, we can say, our blessings on you. And here's a letter from a mother in Connecticut who is happy over her daughter's conversion here. Dear Mr. Fuller, I did so enjoy the broadcast yesterday. It cheered my heart. My daughter has just returned from California. She went out there a sinner, far from God, and she came home Friday a lovely Christian girl, saved at your service in Long Beach on July the 3rd in 49. Another letter from London. This is my last one today. Dear Dr. Fuller, I lived for years in the States, and one of the things I loved the most, even more than your abundant and delicious food, was my spiritual food that I received from hearing the old-fashioned revival hour, hardly missing a Sunday. We do not have any such programs in England, and I have been heartsick in loneliness for it. Well, last Sunday night I was visiting a friend, and someone in the next room had the radio on, and suddenly I heard your familiar voice, Mr. Fuller, announcing during the singing of Jesus Saves. It went right to my heart, and I shouted and ran into the other room, calling out, "Leave that on, please. This is what England needs." I'm telling my friends on all sides, and soon your hour will have a much greater audience in England. Oh, I can't tell you what it means to us over here. And friends, will you be praying for those two stations in Luxembourg and in Formosa, that they may carry the gospel into the hearts of the people, that God will bring opportunities for people to come up to the radios and to hear, that their hearts may be opened, that if they need salvation, they may see clearly the way, and if they need comfort and strength, they may receive that too. There's much need for prayer in these days.
Conquering now and still to conquer, rideth the King in his might, leading the host of all the faithful into the midst of the fight. See them with courage advancing, glad in their brilliant array, shouting the name of their leader, hear them exultingly say, not to the strong is the battle, not to the swift is the race, yet to the true and the faithful, victory is promised through suffering now and still to conquer. Who is this wonderful King? Whence are the armies which he leadeth? While of his glory they sing. He is our Lord and Redeemer, Savior and Monarch divine. They are the stars that forever bright in his kingdom will shine. Not to the strong is the battle, not to the swift is the race, yet to the true and the faithful victory is promised through grace.
You are listening to the Old-Fashioned Revival Hour with Dr. Charles E. Fuller. The message today is titled, Consider Your Ways. I'll provide our address and additional information after Dr. Fuller's message. Open your Bibles to the book of Haggai, chapter 1, as we rejoin the broadcast.
My heart was distressed, neath Jehovah's great frown, and low in the pit where my sins dragged me down. I cried to the Lord from the deep miry clay, who tenderly brought me out to golden day. He brought me out of the miry clay. He set my feet on the rock to stay. He puts a song in my soul today, a song of praise, hallelujah. He placed me upon the strong rock by his side. My steps were established, and here I abide. No danger of falling, for here I remain. I stand by his grace until the crown I gain. He brought me out of the miry clay. He set my feet on the rock to stay. He puts a song in my soul today, a song of praise, hallelujah. He gave me a song, 'twas a new song of praise. By day and by night its sweet notes I will raise. My heart's overflowing, I'm happy and free. I'll praise my Redeemer who has rescued me. He brought me out of the miry clay. He set my feet on the rock to stay. He puts a song in my soul today, a song of praise, hallelujah.
Let's stand and sing one verse of number 140. He leadeth me, O blessed thought, O words with heavenly comfort fraught. We change the program just as the Lord would have us do. Somehow I feel I want you to sing this. He leadeth me, O blessed thought. Sing it out.
the journey of life below, His blessed Spirit He will bestow, and wondrous glory is yet to come after the struggle when we get home. When we get home, when we get home, and wondrous glory when we get home.
Take your Bibles and quickly turn to Haggai, one of the minor prophets, a book that is seldom read. Thumbing through the Old Testament pages, perhaps you pass it by, but a book rich and deep in spiritual teaching. Just 2 chapters, 38 verses, but every verse, it seems, charged with eternal, everlasting truth. Turn to the first chapter, and especially verse 5. Now therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Little is known of Haggai beyond the fact that he was the first of the prophets to the Israelites, which had returned to Jerusalem from Babylon in the year about 536 B.C. Tradition has it that he was born in Babylon shortly after the beginning of the 70-year captivity. That 70-year period, it was prophesied by Jeremiah many years before. After his return, some 16 years had passed since the return from the captivity, about 520 B.C., the work of rebuilding destroyed Jerusalem, and the temple was undertaken with great energy and skill. The brazen altar was first erected, but internal political intrigues interrupted the good work, and eventually the work of restoration came to a complete standstill. The returned remnant gave their whole attention to the erection of palatial buildings to be used for themselves, and the work of the Lord was forgotten, put into the background. A season of great distress followed. First, a great drought. The harvest of those times, the harvest failed. Great trouble and sorrow went throughout the land, according to verse 6. Ye have sown much, and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm, and he that earneth wages to put it in a bag with holes. Verses 9 to 11. Ye looked for much, and lo, it came to little, and when ye brought it home, I did blow upon it, destroy it. Why? Saith the Lord of hosts, because of mine house is waste, and ye have run every man unto his own house. Therefore the heaven over you is stayed from dew, the earth is stayed from her fruit, and I called for a drought. Notice it, God says, I called for a drought upon the land, and upon the mountains, and upon the corn, and upon the new wine, and upon the oil, and upon that which the ground bringeth forth, and upon men, and upon cattle, and upon all the labors of the hand. And I say to you, unless we come back obedient to God, God may call a drought upon America. In Europe, they're having some droughts most severe in the memory of man back to the 3rd and 4th generation. God speaks through storms and drought and times of trouble. And I repeat, unless we come back, America may go through times of drought when the harvest will fail. And after this season of trouble and distress, Haggai was sent by Jehovah to interpret the calamities and to urge the people to be done with their sinful ways. And so, according to verse 5, He sends out these words, "Thus saith the Lord." Notice it. "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways." That is, set your heart or give your attention to your ways. And this refrain runs 5 times through the 38 verses of Haggai. Notice verse 7. "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways." Chapter 2, verse 15. "And now I pray you, consider from this day and upward, from before a stone was laid upon a stone in the temple of the Lord." Consider your ways. And then in verse 18 it occurs twice. "Consider now from this day." And the last 2 words, "consider it." Haggai's mission as a prophet, and speaking on behalf of God to the people, was highly successful and blessed with success. 24 days after he uttered this prophecy, the people turned from their own selfish pursuits and began to rebuild the temple. Haggai himself labored with his own hands, laboring with the faithful remnant. And this prophecy of 38 verses is plain, curt, businesslike. Haggai is plain spoken. He calls a spade a spade. He doesn't mince words, but he goes right to the heart of the matter. And he said to the faithful remnant, "Consider your ways, for thus saith the Lord." I'm giving you, Haggai says, the word of Jehovah. And so in chapter 1, verses 1 to 11, we find the first message, "Consider your ways." We find a very stern message of rebuke. Will you note it, please? Notice in verse 2 how God speaks to the faithful remnant, His blood-bought covenant people. Notice the words, "Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying," this people, not my people, this people, as much as to say, my people have departed from me, have backslidden, have gone after their own sinful ways. And he doesn't speak of them in that tender, loving tone, my people. No, this people. And he goes on, the time is not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built. And then in verse 4, "Is it time for you, O ye that dwell in sealed houses?" That speaks volumes, because instead of building the temple, that temple representing God's presence with them in that temple at the brazen altar, at the laver, at the table of showbread, and the candlesticks and the altar of incense and the Holy of Holies. Instead of building that so that He might dwell with them, they were building houses, paneled, if you please, highly decorated. And it speaks volumes. They were taking their earnings and their wages and spending it upon things for self instead of the house of God and the things of God. And so he goes on, the 6th verse, "Ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough." God knows how to withhold blessings when you withhold things that belong to Him. Therefore, consider your ways. And this blood-bought covenant people were occupied with their own desires, not giving God the just and right place. Does not the Scripture say, listen, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you"? Does it not say to give Christ the preeminence in all that we do, and whatsoever we do, to do all to His glory? Certainly. But here in Haggai, in the days when he prophesied, this people had departed, becoming selfish, self-centered, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Hence, consider your ways. And I stop and ask you the very pertinent question. Is God first in your life? And the calamities which have befallen this people are stated in verses 6 to 11. I read it just a moment ago in the 6th verse about having little. And the thought seems to be the utter folly of spending our whole income on ourselves and our family needs to the entire exclusion of any thoughtful provision for carrying on God's work. Verses 9, 10, and 11. Ye looked for much, and lo, it became little. When ye brought it home, I did blow upon it. Why, saith the Lord of hosts? Because of mine house is waste, and ye run every man unto his own house. Therefore, the heaven over you is stayed with you, which I read to you a little while ago. Let me read to you some passages from God's Word. Blessed is he that considereth the poor. The Lord will deliver him in the time of trouble. The Lord will preserve him and keep him alive. And he shall be blessed upon the earth, and thou wilt not deliver him into the will of his enemies. The Lord will strengthen him. That is, if you honor God first with your substance, God says, I will honor you. And I turn to Proverbs, the 3rd chapter. There's much in the Word of God regarding these things. But I want to give it to you. Verses 9 and 10. Honor the Lord, Proverbs 3, 9 and 10. Honor the Lord with thy substance, and with the first fruits of all thine increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. Talk about a program that will fill the land with prosperity and peace is this. And it will not come by man-made plans or schemes. It'll come first by the people honoring God with their substance first of all, and not through any plan schemed by the politicians in Washington. Proverbs 13:7. There is that maketh himself rich, yet hath nothing. There is that maketh himself poor, yet hath great riches. Proverbs 22:9. Notice what it says. He that hath a bountiful eye shall be blessed, for he giveth of his bread to the poor. Malachi 3:10. Bring all your tithes into the storehouse. Prove me now, saith Jehovah. I'll not pour out a blessing that you can't contain. I'm going to read the 6th chapter of Luke, verse 38. And give you something from the New Testament. Copy these references down, if you will, because this is God's Word. Luke 6:38, here it is. Give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down and shaken together, running over, and men shall give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye meet, wherewithal it shall be measured unto you again. And I say to you that the Christian people of America are face to face with one of the most serious situations, with the increase in the price of food and goods, and at the same time taking more of our income to pay the bills. The question is coming, how much are you going to give to God? But I say to you that no matter what happens, if you will honor God first, He'll see you through, and your barns will be filled. And I've proven it time and time again. 2 Corinthians 8:7-12. I'll not have time to read all of that, but here it is. For ye know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, though He was rich, yet for your sakes He became poor, that ye through His poverty might be rich. And it goes on and says, see that ye abound in this grace also. You put God's work first. And I tell you, if you put it first, sending out the gospel, home and foreign missions, even by radio, the only money you will save is that which you give for God's work. Recently, one of the top entertainers of the entertainment world died here in California, and the paper said that he left $4 million or more. And in among it are the bequests to charity, commendable, and the world applauses. But I say to you, what a shame! Not one penny for God's work or the gospel. He left it behind. And what you spend for God, you will save. The second message, and I must quickly, the first message of the Lord's rebuke had the desired effect. Verse 12 are these beautiful words. Will you see it, please? How God works. Notice it in the 12th verse. They obeyed, and then they went to work. Here it is. Ye obeyed my voice. And then, here it is, about Zerubbabel and so forth, with all the remnant of the people, obeyed the voice of the Lord their God and the words of Haggai the prophet, as the Lord their God had sent them. And the people did fear the Lord. And then it speaks of their being obedient. You hear what God has to say. You hear through His ambassadors the Word of God that's been given to you. And then obey, and God comes back and says this, I am with thee, but not until obedience, not until you come back to the place of confession and obedience, will you have the words, I am with you. God's work was stirred up. The Lord stirred up the spirit of these men, and He began to build the house of the temple. And no sooner had God's people started the work of building the temple, the note of discouragement comes in. How true it is that you attempt some work for God after obedience, after hearing the gracious words, I am with thee. You start to do a work for God. And in the second chapter, verses 1 to 9, comes a note of discouragement. And as the people labored, they became disheartened for the fact that owing to their poverty and the fewness of numbers and the lack of skilled workers, the temple was bound to be inferior to Solomon's temple. I must close. God says, I will fill this second temple with my glory, and it'll have more glory than all that Solomon's temple ever had. And I leave you with this thought. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and you may be the weakest of the weakest, but if you will dedicate and present your life as a living sacrifice, you'll have the greatest of all glory, Christ in you, the hope of glory. What a privilege to come by faith, accept what God has done for you in Christ, and be reconciled to Him, brought nigh by the blood, Christ in you, the hope of glory. And while we're bowed in prayer, and just before the chorus sings the invitation number, out in the radio audience, will you give your hearts to Christ and come back through confession and obedience and hear God say to you, I am with you. My peace I give unto you, not as the world gives, to have Christ in you, the hope of glory. God bless you. God's not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And while our heads are bowed here in this splendid visible audience, how many will quickly put their hand up and say by the uplifted hand, Brother Fuller, pray for me. I here now want to accept Christ as my personal Savior and be remembered in a word of prayer. Will you put your hand up in any place in this room? Say, pray for me. God bless you. God bless you. Quickly and quietly as the Holy Spirit is speaking to you. I have to bring it to a close. This is Charles E. Fuller bidding you goodbye and God's richest blessing upon you. Continue in prayer.
spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generation. The eternal light.
The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations make free time available to present The Eternal Light, a program which comes to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our Eternal Light story today, All These Barren Hills, was written by Morton Wishengrad. Donald Bucher is heard as Samuel Gottlieb, and Alexander Scorby is the narrator.
We will observe the mighty holiness of this day. And in this season of the days of awe, let us tell once again a dream of the prophet Jeremiah, that they who survive shall find grace in the wilderness. And the watchmen on Mount Ephraim shall call out to them, Arise ye, and let us go up to Zion. This is a true history, based upon actual letters, upon diaries that were kept, upon documents which were gathered and preserved as a journal. The day the bugle blew was April 11th, 1945. It took a little time to decide what should be done. Nearly a month. Then it took a little time to speak to the authorities. On June 3rd, 1945, 16 of them got into a truck. To the left and to the right, the rich landscape of Thüringen unrolled. They rode through Weimar, past the ruined houses and the broken streets. They rode for a long time, but they were patient. They could afford to be patient. In the town of Blankenheim, they stopped. The man who sat beside the driver got out and spoke to the Burgermeister.
We are taking possession of the township farm at Eggendorf.
No? By what authority?
The American military government, Herr Burgermeister.
What documents do you have? I will need a certification.
These are the papers. They're in order, Herr Burgermeister.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Not at all.
What will you be doing in Germany?
We shall be farmers.
I see. Another question, if you don't mind.
I don't mind, Herr Burgermeister.
Where do you come from?
Buchenwald.
You mean from there?
Yes.
May I know your name?
You may. It's Samuel Gottlieb.
They were 16 from Buchenwald, 16 who had survived the sword. But they had not come unto the mountains of Samaria to plant a vineyard. Neither were they adorned with tabrets and disposed to go forth in merry dances. It was enough to be able to walk and to be allowed a small dream. The township farm of Eggendorf is 2 kilometers from the Burgermeister's house in Blankenheim. They rode to the farm with their documents of temporary possession. They looked at it with their large eyes, and then slowly the man named Samuel Gottlieb enumerated their blessings.
All right. The houses are torn and broken. We're no better. The cattle are skinny. Why not? They won't be ashamed of us. Oh, that's a joke. Isn't anybody going to laugh?
Samuel, I've had a look at the pile of manure out in the yard. For that alone, just to clean the yard, months of work.
Anybody else? Avram.
I didn't want to speak, but since you ask, everything is filthy. Everything needs repair. It would be different, Samuel, if we were people with skill. 8 years ago in Poland, I was a school teacher.
Avram, that's the whole point. We used to be tailors and clerks and intellectuals. Now we're going to become farmers. Isn't this what we argued about in Buchenwald? Avram, it was you who made the big speeches. Let us live together here in Germany, in a communal settlement, and prepare ourselves to be farmers so that we can go to Palestine and work on the land. That's what you said.
I haven't changed my mind. But this place is hopeless.
What do you think this place says about you? Look at all of us. What a collection of scarecrows we are. Well, what do you say?
It's better than the watchtowers and the barracks at Buchenwald. Let's get some sleep. Tomorrow morning we'll look around and see what's to be done.
Tomorrow they looked around, and they began to work. They began to build a farm settlement, modeled after the pioneer farm settlements of Eretz Yisrael. They gave themselves a name. A man named Samuel Gottlieb wrote an entry in his diary.
This is the farm settlement of Buchenwald. Kibbutz Buchenwald. Camp Buchenwald punished us, ruined us, but Kibbutz Buchenwald has united us. We've been cleansed of all our sickly, egotistic leanings. Now we must train ourselves to deserve to build our Kibbutz Buchenwald in Eretz Yisrael. There is so much work to do.
Look, how can you keep hammering nails when your right hand is just a mass of blisters?
You don't have to know the Talmud to answer. You use your left hand.
But what happens if both hands are full of blisters?
Then you shovel manure.
Look, how much manure can a man shovel?
How much is there?
So much.
That's how much. What are you so pale about?
I never touched a horse in my life. Now I'm riding one.
Not so loud. You're all right so long as the horse doesn't know. Now what's the matter? Why aren't you plowing?
The oxen have stopped.
Well, don't be bashful. Yell to them to start.
How do I yell?
Well, maybe they were not the oxen. Just yell Achtung.
You know, that's something I can't joke about. And I suppose it's stupid of me, but I just can't bring myself to shout commands at them in German. What's the Hebrew word for onward?
Kadima.
All right. Get up. Kadima.
It was a miracle. Not that they were able to work and had the strength for it, but that they were able to laugh. They plowed with oxen. One day after their arrival, they were already turning over the weed-choked earth of Eggendorf. It was cruel work for men who had subsisted for so many years on watery soup and potato parings. They trembled with fatigue. Under the hot sun, they shivered with weakness. But they forced themselves to turn over the ground, to sow it with barley and wheat.
Whoa! Whoa!
What's the matter of them?
My hands are bleeding. My back.
Oh, hey, change places with me.
Thanks, Maya.
Better cover those blisters with something. Avram, what's wrong?
are we crazy?
What do you mean?
I mean, have we become lunatics? Look at all of us. What are we doing here? Working the Nazis' land.
It was a question uppermost in their minds. They were rebuilding a German farm, plowing German land. Why were they doing it? A man named Shlomo Lazarovich wrote the answer down in a letter he sent from Kibbutz Buchenwald to a friend in the former concentration camp of Buchenwald. A letter from a pioneer to a displaced person.
We must learn to love work itself and bring this love with us to Palestine. Even while we were still in Buchenwald, we volunteered to work in the hospital to save the few who were still alive. We washed the sick. We did not run away, even when the typhus epidemic spread. We suffered a great deal in the last 6 years, but we learned that only through love of labor can we find a lasting foundation for the future.
As if in answer to the letter, on June 6th, 5 more scarecrows arrived to build and to be rebuilt by Kibbutz Buchenwald. June the 9th was the Sabbath, and a man named Avram wrote in his diary that night,
Our room was brightly lighted and filled with guests. One of them was a rabbi from the American Army who had come to be with us for the Sabbath. We asked him to say a few words.
I don't have any right to preach to you. It isn't why I came.
You're a rabbi. It's the Sabbath.
I don't know what to say. I've never had a congregation like you.
Say whatever you please. We'll listen.
No. This time, I want my congregation to preach to me. I'm creating a president. I'm a rabbi who wants to listen.
No. What can we tell you? Well, we work hard here. The first days, we didn't think it was possible to go on. It's a little easier now. I think we've proved to ourselves that we haven't been destroyed, that we are people with a will to continue. We thank you for the help you have brought us from the American Joint Distribution Committee, because you are helping us to reach a time and a place when we will be able to rely on ourselves.
Samuel Gottlieb, that's a sermon for this Sabbath. Let me give you a text for it. They say that of those who went into the wilderness with Moses toward the land that had been promised to them, some saw only the difficulties. We cannot secure the land of Israel, they said. But some were like you, like Joshua ben Nun. They relied on themselves. And they said with Joshua, let us go up into the land.
Discovered in America in the days of Daniel Boone and the Cumberland Road, in the days of the Conestoga wagons, a pioneer is a skillful man, sufficient unto himself. You do not build a civilization in a wilderness with other men's hands. The hands must be your own, skilled hands, able to turn the earth, to hold it, to build a house, to hold it, to gather the grain from one's own field, to hold it. It requires skill to be a pioneer and courage. And so they who had come with courage taught one another skill.
This is the machine which the Joint Distribution Committee sent to us yesterday. Now you stand here and watch how it works. Halima.
They stood round and watched the machine whir through a field of barley, cutting the grain and binding the sheaves. Then the machine broke down.
Send for a mechanic to fix it.
No, wait. Let me try.
Have you ever repaired a machine like this?
No. Until yesterday, I never even saw one. But yesterday, I stood and watched the mechanic who brought it. A machine is only a machine no matter what it does. Somebody give me a screwdriver.
Well, naturally, he didn't fix it. It takes something more than presumption or boldness to repair a complicated mechanism. And so they had to call an expert. But the second time the machine broke down, an expert was no longer necessary. They had watched him, and as they themselves said...
After all, what is an expert? A man who is capable of learning from others.
Kadima!
This was how to be a pioneer. A man with a scholar's face, but with newly calloused hands, laughed to himself.
I will tell Samuel Gottlieb how I learned about monkey wrenches and pliers from a man who used to teach the Talmud. That should be a proper entry for his journal.
As the days followed, there were many new entries in the journal of Kibbutz Buchenwald.
The Russian army will occupy Thüringen, so we shall leave Wegendorf, find a new place farther west. We are to be given a new farm near Fulda. June 24th. We are in Geringshof near Fulda. It is even poorer than Eggendorf. There are no beds, no chairs, no tables. Still, we've started right to work.
July 2nd. New recruits come to us every day. Young men, young women, all intent on Eretz Yisrael. Some are religious, some are not religious. We are all shades of opinion. We have decided that no one will try to force his ideas upon his comrades. The main thing is that all of us have only one object at heart: to work for Palestine and the Jewish people.
Slowly they find themselves. Cheeks are burnt by the sun, hands are surer, eyes are more clear. On the Sabbath, the cattle and horses are in their stalls. The men and women wash and put on fresh clothes. And Samuel Gottlieb of Kibbutz Buchenwald composes an entry for his diary.
Once there lived an artist in God's world, somewhere on the edge of the Baltic Sea. He looked out on the greenish water, studied the world and its beauty. He listened to the sounds around him, and all that his heart felt, he played on his fiddle. Then there was the war, and all vanished. They took him away forever. His wife, his music, his children were gone. All that remained was his last friend, his fiddle. And he plays upon it endlessly in his pain, month after month and year after year. And suddenly, all becomes quiet on God's earth. The burning fires are put out. Airplanes are quiet, motionless. The prison gates open for him. He sees the blue sky and the sun. He wants to run somewhere, to run to something. He seeks his beloved ones, his wife and his children. But he does not find them. He is all alone. And then he finds us. He is a member of our kibbutz, one of us, equal with all, working equally with all, and playing on his fiddle. Like this. So heartfelt. So good.
A melody to play on a violin, a Rosh Hashanah hymn to sing in Kibbutz Buchenwald. Lo, as the potter shapes the clay, so are we in thy hands. A hymn of occupation, of the smith, the mason, the worker in the field. And the men and women regard the musician and the singer, gazing with large, staring eyes. They sit sunken in themselves, thinking of dead moments and wondering.
Far away, perhaps at Carmel or near the Sea of Galilee, there's a green settlement. Will there be some joy for us there? Will there be warmth and closeness somewhere? Sometime?
On August 5th, an American chaplain brings news.
Please be quiet. We're behaving like children. Please be quiet. Quiet, everyone. All right, Rabbi. We'll be quiet.
I have received word from Paris that 80 priority certificates for Palestine have been set aside for Kibbutz Buchenwald.
80 certificates?
You can expect to sail in a month or 6 weeks.
Well?
Rabbi, you're absolutely sure?
Yes.
It wouldn't be good if...
You will not be disappointed.
You're sure?
Yes. There are 80 certificates. More than you yourselves need.
We'll send a small committee to Bergen-Belsen and ask who among them will go with us as farmers to Eretz Yisrael.
80 certificates.
They stand around, and for once there is no quick movement to resume the tasks they've left abandoned. A hammer lies idle near a cabinet that's being repaired. The oxen stand stolidly in the field and wait for the return of the plowmen. The thin cows munch hay in their stalls, while the milk pails remain unfilled. There is silence. The men and women have died many times. They are those who have seen hell and survived. Now they can only listen to the sound of their own heartbeats. That evening, Samuel Gottlieb opens the diary he is keeping. He dips a pen in ink, and he writes a single sentence.
Perhaps the word joy, in the fullest meaning, is enough.
On August 8th, there is another entry.
2 girls have come to us from Bergen-Belsen.
Shalom, Chaverim.
On August 11th, Samuel Gottlieb takes up his pen again.
Today was the Sabbath, and from a distance we heard a song. Then came some girls and boys, and we went out to meet them, crying, Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. And then we began to dance.
And so there is another entry in the journal.
The words of the song are, who will build Galilee? And the answer is, God will build Galilee, and we will build Galilee.
The journal is crowded now with many entries. But the best entry is a smudge of soot that comes through the window of the railroad car. A man named Abraham Ahovain studies the faces of his comrades, and he begins to write in his diary.
Through the dark of Europe, a few half-broken little railway cars are carrying a few people toward Palestine. Each of them, years ago, sent his longing heart before him, sent his heart from behind electrified barbed wire. In the car, all have given themselves to the angel of sleep. Like good children, they are listening to the angel's tales. It is dark, but it gets lighter and lighter. My comrades get up, come back into life again.
September 8th, 1945. The military transport Matroa cast anchor off the port of Haifa. September 8th. It was the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the new year and the new life. They thronged the deck in sight of the Holy Land, and they spoke an ageless prayer.
grant lasting peace unto Israel and all mankind. In the book of life may we be inscribed before thee. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who makest peace.
A wind came up on Rosh Hashanah, a wind that blew down from the hill of Zion toward the sea. And one of the girls, the girl from Buchenwald, wrote of that moment.
Friend, is it possible that there on the horizon, still unclear, is it possible that I have seen a shape there of rolling hills and heights and valleys? Are these the contours of our land? I stand against the rail. My lips repeat over and over, Eretz Yisrael. I know that the past will not lead me, and I am a little afraid. Once I wanted to believe in the world, in people, in ideals, and life has showed me that this could not be. Now the same wish begins to be reborn in me. Let me put away what I have lived through. Let me leave it here in the depths of the sea. Friends, I see the first house.
This is the season of the holy days in America and also in a farm settlement of Eretz Yisrael, known as Kibbutz Buchenwald. The settlement has grown to more than 100 men and women and children. And to them have come the people of the land of Israel, only to look upon them and to speak a word.
You come in a good time. We are only at the beginning. All these barren hills must one day be covered with green.
There are many hymns for the solemn festival of Rosh Hashanah. In Israel, in Kibbutz Buchenwald, they sing this hymn for themselves, and the words are proper for the day and for the season. The words are, Ki hine kachone. As the potter shapes the clay and proves it in the fire, so we are proved by thee.
Our Eternal Light drama today, All These Barren Hills, was written by Morton Wishengrad and is based upon two articles written by Meyer Levin entitled The Journal of Kibbutz Buchenwald, which appeared in the magazine Commentary. The music was composed by Morris Namorsky and conducted by Milton Kadens. Cantor David Futterman sang the liturgical music. Donald Duca was featured as Samuel Gottlieb, and Alexander Scorby was the narrator. The entire production was under the direction of Edward King. Free time to present the Eternal Light is made available by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations.
Unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations. The Eternal Light.
National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations make free time available to present The Eternal Light, a program which comes to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Today, in the season of the Sukkot Festival, we present a story by Irv Tunick entitled The Creation, in commemoration of United Nations Week. Featured as narrator is Raymond Edward Johnson.
It is written that in the beginning, the very beginning, even before the beginning, 2,000 years before the heavens were divided into seven, before the earth was born, before the first terrestrial morn, the Lord God created seven things. First, God made the Torah, the holy law. It was written in black fire on white fire so that its words would blaze forever. Then the divine throne was created. Paradise was placed on its right hand, and hell on its left, and the celestial sanctuary stretched before the throne. Finally, the seventh thing was created. It was a voice, and it cried aloud,
"Return, ye children of men."
And it came to pass, and so it is written, that 974 generations after the Lord God created the Torah, he wished to create the world. He spoke to the Torah. God spoke, saying, "In thy opinion, would it be wise to create the earth?" And the Torah answered,
O Lord God, truly thou art the King of kings. And truly a king must have his army, his courtiers, his attendants to do his bidding. But in this matter I am burdened with fear, I ache with danger. If thou should create the world, thou must also create man. And what shall man be? A sinner, a cheat, a thief, an ingrate. He will lie, slander, covet, murder. He will live for himself and not for the Torah.
And God replied, "If there shall be sin, there shall also be repentance. I shall create the world, and I shall create man. And man shall be created in my own image." Now God called to his side justice. He summoned justice, saying to justice, "Go thee and rule the earth which I am about to create." And justice went to earth, the first earth God created. Justice went to earth and ruled over all the earth, over the creatures of the earth and the men of the earth. And then God came down to earth. He came down and was displeased with the earth he had created. "It is not good," said God. "It is not good. I will not have it." And God then created a second earth. And again justice went to rule. And again God was displeased, and his anger turned the sun to ash. "It is not good," said God. "I will not have it." And a third earth was created. "It is not good," said God. "I will not have it." And a fourth earth. And so with the fifth earth and the sixth. "It is not good," said the Lord. "I will not have it." Now God summoned the virtues to his presence, He summoned justice and peace. He summoned blessing, mercy, and right. He summoned the virtues. And the virtues stood before him. Justice spoke first.
It was done as my Lord God desired it to be done. I went to the earth and sat in judgment. To all I gave equal justice, to the rich and poor alike, to the farmer and the artisan, to the scholar and the yeoman. To all judgment was given according to the law.
Then right spoke.
What is lacking then? Is it truth? No, it cannot be truth because man has the truth. He has the law. Is it faith? No, it cannot be faith because man has a soul, and the soul is the vault of faith. Is it love? No, it cannot be love because man has children, and children are love. Is it beauty? No, it cannot be beauty because a man is fashioned in the image of God. What is lacking then? What is needed?
And justice replied,
It is not what is lacking, but what is there, the seed of imperfection. I will prove it. Look down upon earth, upon one speck of earth. See there a man. Jacob Mitzvah.
Who calls me?
Jacob Mitzvah. Are you a pious man?
I love the Lord, my God.
Do you live by the law of God, Jacob Mitzvah?
Every fleeting moment of my life.
And yet, Jacob Mitzvah, you have broken the law. You have stolen that which belonged to another. Is that not the truth? Speak.
It is the truth. I have stolen.
See there? A pious man, and yet a thief. How can I work in this clay?
Jacob Mitzvah, what did you steal?
I stole bread.
Why did you steal bread?
To feed my children. It was a bitter time, and the crop was less than normal. My master took all the wheat, even my rightful share. He took it and sold it in the market to buy jewels for his wife. When my children cried, and they always cried, they were hungry. When I could no longer stand their cries, I went to my master's house and stole bread.
And that was your crime?
I stole bread. That was my crime.
It was a crime, and he was judged according to his crime, and he was declared guilty of his crime. Pious man, but still guilty of his crime.
Justice. What is a crime?
Crime is the breaking of the law.
Crime is the breaking of the law. But is the law so unbending that it will not yield? Let there be law, and let there be wisdom in the execution of the law. Let there be law, and let there be compassion in the hearts of the judges who measure the law. Let there be law, and let the law be gentle. Let the law be filled with understanding.
And the Lord appeared. Suddenly he appeared, and the Lord said, Who has spoken these words?
I have spoken them, O my King.
And the Lord asked, What is thy name?
My name is Mercy.
And God smiled, and the wind was suddenly soft. God smiled, and he said, Mercy, go thou with justice to the earth. Together you will rule the world I am about to create. And as it is written, the world was created in 6 days. On the first day, God created the heavens and the earth, light and darkness, day and night. On the second day, God created the firmament, the veil between the waters above and the waters below. On the third day of creation, God ordered that the waters be gathered together and the dry land to appear. The earth, obedient, hunched itself into hills and mountains, pushed valleys apart, dug riverbeds, and scratched waterways for streams. The water descended into these basins. It thrashed against its banks, hated its imprisonment, cried out aloud, "Oh, Lord, let me escape!"
This is no fit preserve for the mightiest of all things created. Let me escape my prison, that may once again flood the entire earth. Give me the acres I need for my glory.
And God was angry. He turned to the waters. God in his anger turned to the waters and said, "Do not boast of thy strength, O water. Behold, I will order the sand to make a boundary for thee, which thou shalt not be able to pass." And the water laughed. It rippled its surface and laughed.
The sand! What can the sand do to me? My smallest wave will pass over the sand and scatter the puny particles all over the earth.
The biggest grain of sand called his brothers together.
Fear not, my brothers. True, we are small. We are weak and powerless when each is by himself. Divided, we would fly into the endless abyss if the slightest drop of water touched us. But let us unite, never to separate, and we shall become strong. And the boastful waters will know our strength and no longer despise us.
And still the water laughed. It rippled its surface and laughed. And then in a hideous fury it flung itself upon the sand. Again and again, in furious passion, it flung itself upon the sand. And then, because the grains of sand were united, because they lived together in peace, because they had found the strength of union, the waters tasted of defeat and recoiled. And the Lord said, "I detest pride." And as it is written, on the fourth day, God created the sun, the moon, and the stars. On the fifth day, he created the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky. On the sixth day, God created the living creatures after his kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the earth after his kind. And as it is written, on the sixth day also God created man. With dust gathered from the four corners of the earth, God created man. When man opened his eyes, his first words were, "How great are thy works, O Lord." God then led Adam through the Garden of Eden. And God said to Adam, "See how beautiful are the works of my hands. Whatever I have created was made for thy sake. Take care lest thou spoil or destroy my world, for if thou wilt spoil it, there will be none to set it aright. How great are thy works, O Lord." Now God resolved to give Adam a wife. He caused Adam to fall into slumber, and God said, "How shall I make Eve? I will not make her from the head of man, lest she carry her head in arrogant pride. nor from the eye, lest she be wanton-eyed, nor from the ear, lest she be an eavesdropper, nor from the neck, lest she be insolent, nor from the mouth, lest she be a tattler, nor from the heart, lest she be inclined to envy, nor from the hand, lest she be a meddler, nor from the foot, lest she be a gadabout. And the Lord took a rib from Adam's side, and as he formed it into the shape of a woman, the Lord whispered, "Be pure, be pure." The wedding of Adam and Eve was a blessed occasion. God presented the bride to the groom, the angels danced, and there was joy. And now that it was done, now that creation was done, now that all things were done, all that was needed was for the Lord to press upon the earth his seal, to say that it was good. He assembled the angels. All the angels were assembled, and God sat on his throne. Just then, with a swirl of wind, justice and mercy appeared. The two together, justice and mercy, they stood before the throne. Said justice,
"I pray thee, O Lord, not to bless the world. It is not worthy."
Said mercy,
"It is beyond redemption, Almighty King."
And the Lord looked at mercy and justice. The Lord looked at them and said, "What is thy complaint against my earth?"
"It is man. He is a baseless sinner. He defies the law. He wars against his fellow man, thinks evil of his neighbor, steals and cheats from his own flesh and blood."
It is not always that bad. Some men are faithful in their own peculiar fashion. A man is good to his wife. He's good to his family. He is even good to his friends. One might even agree that each man can be good to one another. But that is not the source of the trouble.
It is when man forms little circles with other men.
Then it is not man against man, but circle against circle, group against group. This is the evil we cannot mend.
A man from this family hates a man from that family.
A man from this town hates a man from that town.
A man from this state hates a man from that state.
A man from this nation hates a man from that nation.
And the Lord listened to justice and mercy. He listened to them and said, "Go thee back to my earth and tell my people of the earth to form themselves into one bundle, so that one man is to another man as a father is to a son." Justice and mercy returned to the earth, appealed to the people of the earth, told them to form themselves into one bundle as the Lord God commanded. And so, at a certain time, in a certain city, the rulers of the world gathered. Kings of mighty nations, ministers from minor tribes, diplomats, statesmen, secretaries, and specialists of protocol. They gathered in this certain city for the purpose of binding themselves together into one bundle as the Lord commanded. And it started with debate. And the debate rose to argument, and the argument swelled to anger, and the anger became passion, and passion flung justice aside and mercy, and all the world trembled in fear. And the Lord saw this, and his anger split mountains asunder. Cried the Lord, "I will not have it. I will not see man barter away the lives of other men as a butcher barters beef. I will not have it. If a man does not want peace, I will not have man. As I have created man, so shall I destroy him." Now the angels gathered close to the throne. They gathered close and were eager to sing their praise of the Lord. But the Lord motioned them to silence. He was prepared to pass judgment. The angel Shamael flew to the gates, flung open the gates, and listened. There was nothing but a pillar of silence stretching from the earth to heaven. And the angels stirred, and there was tension, and fear, anxiety, and silence. Just then, from off in the velvet distance, a voice was heard. The melody was as sweet as a sunrise, as warm as a baby, as rich as a kiss. The voice of the people flew up from the earth, begging forgiveness, asking for mercy. And this was the prayer.
Grant us forgiveness for the sake of those who were slain for thy holy name, who were slaughtered proclaiming thy unity, who went through fire and water for the sanctification of thy name. Do it for the sake of the sucklings at the breast, for the sake of weaned infants who have not trespassed, for the sake of peoples in houses of instruction. Do it for thy sake, if not for ours. Do it for thy sake, and save us.
And now the Lord cried, and his tears flowed, and he knew the prayer of Israel, and he stayed his hand. He said, "Not yet, not yet." And so the Lord waits. He waits for the dawn of the true seventh day. He waits for the Sabbath of peace.
O men of earth, why do you deny the Lord God rest from his labors? After all these uncounted generations, the seventh day is not yet.
Now we take great pleasure in presenting Major Aubrey Eben, speaking from Paris, France. We take you now to Paris.
As I speak to you from the church, the nations of the world are assembled for critical decisions on the future of the Holy Land. The revival of Jewish statehood after 2,000 years presents itself to the world community as an unexampled triumph of faith and historic tenacity. Subtle though the existence of the State of Israel is an evident fact, recognized with pride and respect by our friends, but also recognized, though with reluctance, by our enemies, that does not mean that all is safely accomplished and attained. there lies before our delegation a supremely important task: to stand guard upon the political and territorial integrity of our state. The Negev is a part of Israel, just as Arizona is a part of the United States. No legal power anywhere exists, not even in the General Assembly of the United Nations, whereby a part of an existing state may be detached from it without its consent. We therefore firmly reject the proposals of the mediator's report to award the greater part of Israel to Arab states. The Negev, all the Negev, north and south, is not merely a part of Israel. It is that part of the country to which the highest value is attached.